Hi folks, so I am here to do my weekly overview for the week of April the 14th to April the 21st. There are three things that I want to discuss for this week. First and foremost, I already did a video on this yesterday. The big news this week is that Jupiter finally conjuncts Uranus in Taurus on April the 20th. This is a big enough aspect and has been in the works since May of 2023. Usually, when I refer to other videos in my videos, I'll say, if you want to learn more about this, go take a look at that. If you want to learn about this, go look at that. The video I did yesterday, I think, humbly, is useful and important enough, I think, especially if you can make the connections with the various cycles that I talk about in it, that I think it may be worth looking at. I rarely will say, oh, you have to go see this, or you should see this. I think that it may be helpful if you're trying to get a sense of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Some of the other conjunctions, some of the cycles that I'm referring to in that video might be useful, might be interesting. I certainly, during the course of the video, sort of got into that side of my personality that gets really excited with astrology. You'll see me kind of not quite lose it, but start to get distracted with things that I wanted to delve into deeper, but I kind of brought myself back. So irrespective, the big aspect this week on the 20th of April, Jupiter conjuncting Uranus, and I am not expecting lightning to strike everyone on the 20th or the 19th. As I said, this is something that has been in the works since May of 2023, when Jupiter entered Taurus and conjuncted with the North Node, and it's been making its way to Uranus. So some of us may be able to make sense of some events that have occurred this week, maybe last week, maybe since January, February. So I'm going to let you take a look at that video to get clear on this particular, and once I'm done processing this video, I'll place a link to that at the end of this video as well. So that was the video I posted yesterday. Number two, we had the moon reach its midpoint between the new moon and the full moon today. So over the course of the next week, the full moon is on Monday or Tuesday. Is it on Tuesday? Goodness, I think it's on Tuesday, the 23rd. Yes, maybe it's on Monday. Irrespective, it's 7 days from today. So it might be on Monday, Tuesday. Maybe the night between, whatever. I'll let you guys take a look at it. No, you know what? It's going to drive me crazy. I should know this. Shame on me. I should have that date sort of, emblazoned. Whatever, is that a word? April the 23rd, 4:49 p.m. So that would make it Tuesday. That's when the moon is full. And it's a full moon that squares Pluto. Yay! 2 days before Mercury goes direct. So full moon squaring Pluto while Mercury is stationary for all intents and purposes. Next week is going to be fun. Not. Next week has an intensity to it. This week doesn't quite. But coming back to point number two, before I move on to point number three, coming back to point number two, the moon starts to become bigger. We are entering the two most productive weeks out of the 4 in a lunar month. And this week, as we head towards that full moon, and especially I think as we get past Thursday, Friday, Saturday, is going to become janglier. Remember, I've always told you that the most productive day is actually the week after the full moon, because the energies are more balanced. So while I expect us to get busier, I also expect us to get possibly more frantic, more worked up, more full moony, heading towards, and with a full moon squaring Pluto, the sun squares Pluto, I think, on Sunday, a couple of days before the full moon, and so the moon will become full on, the moon will square Pluto on its way to becoming full. Let me just put it that way. Does that sound right? Yes, it does. Absolutely, because the full moon is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, the sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Scorpio, and the Pluto is like in the very first degrees of Aquarius. So on its way to becoming full, the moon will square Pluto. Just a few hours before though, and the Sun squares Pluto on Sunday. So so these conversations with Pluto are going to start to become more important as the planets move into the sign of Taurus. The Sun, then Venus, then Mercury, then Mars, they will square Pluto. And then as the planets move into Gemini, about a month later, the Sun, then Jupiter, then I think Venus, Mercury, and Mars in that sequence, perhaps, they will trine Pluto. And there could be, Pluto came into, for the first part of this year, Pluto's entry into Aquarius occurred on around January 20th, if I recall. And I think the Sun and Pluto entered, they conjuncted in Capricorn and they entered Aquarius on the same day. And in the first 2 weeks of February, till February 17th to 18th, we had the personal planets, Mercury, Mars, and Venus conjunct Pluto as they entered Aquarius. So there could be developments that harken back to alerting us to Pluto's transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart and how it is that the Taurus and Scorpio parts of our chart are in conversation with that. So, number one, Jupiter conjuncts Uranus on the 20th. Much more about this week. Video done yesterday, separate video from this one. Please take a look at it. I think it might be helpful, useful, interesting. Can't force you to if you feel inclined. Number two, the moon grows in size, and as we get closer to the full moon, expect the energies to become full moony. On a positive side, offers, completions, limelight, however temporary. On a more challenging side, emotional, intuitive flare-ups, tantrums, departures, meltdowns, intensity, busyness, jangliness. The full moon occurs, and then for about 7 days after that, the energies are perfectly balanced to continue to get done. So expect the week. If you're looking to engage and start to, you might, as the week goes on, find that you feel a sense of urgency around getting things done and getting things moving, particularly because we may have felt some of the more positive, optimistic transits that I've talked about in the last few videos. Kind of, we may feel the new moon solar eclipse in Aries as the moon gets bigger, and we may feel that we have the ability to start to move forward in what has been, kind of, as I've mentioned to you, kind of a hangman month. The month of April, we might feel like I'm going to start putting energy behind whatever I need to put energy behind, understanding that Mercury still is retrograde and is not going to go, it's really going to be after April the 28th or so. Mercury goes direct April the 25th. Give it 2 or 3 days for the energies to really clear up. Of course, by that time, we're going to be the last week before the Taurus new moon. But irrespective, expect that you will start to get on some sort of a hamster wheel as this week progresses. Maybe you already have, maybe even tomorrow. Maybe you start to become busier, more productive, and eager to get things done because you instinctively know, as we compared this Mercury retrograde and eclipses as an arrow drawing back, even though you're waiting to release the arrow, and please do not go by a bow and arrow. It's a metaphorical example. I'm not advocating any kind of violent activity. So metaphorically speaking, you may have a clearer sense of where that target is and where it is that you're committing to moving towards. And so you might feel like it's time to continue to take care of tasks that involve that kind of cleaning up where we're at idea that we talked about. You know, we talked about the fact that after the April to 28th, and as we head into May, and after the May new moon, and as we head to the June new moon, we will be really moving forward. And so using April to take care of pending tasks, cleaning up where we're at, so that by the time we're ready to move forward, we really are lighter, freer, clearer, prepared. That's the word. We might feel like we really have more of a fire under our butts, and please do not light a fire under your butt. I really need to be careful. I really need to watch what comes out of my mouth sometimes. So metaphorically speaking, we might I was going to say ants in my pants, but do not do that either. So we might start to feel like it's time to get moving, get in action, and the energy as we head to the full moon, as I said, may just become a little jangly with that. We might feel a greater sense of urgency, etc. Now, the third thing. This week, as I've already given you a heads up, and I suspect that coming into this week, we've probably felt some of this already, because we may even have felt it Thursday, Friday at the end of last week. Because as I've mentioned to you, you start to feel aspects as they approach, as opposed to on the date of. The big news this week, and compared to last week, where one of the big headliners was like a Mars-Saturn conjunction in Pisces, or, we have technically a lighter week this week, sandwiched between two heavier weeks. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because the lightness may be something that we really feel between Thursday, Friday, and let's say Wednesday, Thursday. Well, not really. I think it continues during the course of the week. As we head towards that full moon, we're going to become more conscious of the sun getting ready to square Pluto. And with the sun, if the square with Pluto occurs on, I will come to the happier transit in a second, believe me. The sun squares Pluto on the 21st, next Sunday. So just know that in the middle of a healing set of transits in Aries that I will talk about in a second, an interesting, exciting set of transits, as we head to, as the week progresses, even starting tomorrow or day after, we might start to, because I give the sun a good 5 degrees in 5 odd days. So I think starting Wednesday especially, we're going to start to feel this idea of what needs to be done on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, the houses occupied by Taurus and Scorpio in your chart, and how are they connected to what sort of visibility in the Taurus part of the chart on the heels of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and what sort of emotional reaction to that awareness and visibility in the Taurus part of the chart from the Scorpio part of the chart has a connection to what Pluto has announced that it is trying to do and create over the next 19 years in the Aquarius part of your chart. And when I say Taurus part of your chart, Scorpio part of your chart, Aquarius part of your chart, I'm talking about the houses in your chart occupied by these signs and what those houses stand for. But we also have in the sign of Aries, where we had the new moon solar eclipse and where we have Mercury retrograde conjuncting Chiron, Venus conjuncting the North Node, and then Venus conjuncting Mercury, and then Venus conjuncting Chiron. So Mercury retrograde, Chiron, Venus are conjuncting this week, not on the same day, but different days during this week, but in a short period of time, so they're close together. And on her way to meet up with a retrograde Mercury and Chiron, Venus will conjunct the North Node. Venus is the planet making most of the conjunctions, and as I've discussed with you, I think it was last week, I did a video on Venus going into Aries. I'll find that video, place a link to that at the end of this one as well. as a retrograde Mercury allows us to clean up and learn more about things that were in our blind spot, and get some sort of reality checks and also some real evidence around things that we may have felt intuitive inklings about but not quite being sure about. As Mercury retrograde says, not quite yet. Goodness, lighting. Not quite yet with moving towards that target. Not quite yet with regard to making strides, taking action in the Aries part of the chart, even after the new moon solar eclipse on April the 8th. Venus, on the other hand, is delivering the opportunities that once Mercury is direct and once Mars enters Aries at the end of April will allow us to move into a space of greater action and progress. So Venus provides the opportunity, the relationship opportunities, the financial opportunities, the creative opportunities, the blessings, the openings, the doors. And this week, now this is what I mean by we may have started to feel this occur even Thursday, Friday of last week. The sequence of these conjunctions is today, on the 15th, earlier today, a retrograde Mercury conjuncted Chiron. Remember, Mercury conjuncts Chiron 3 times because they are retrograde. So when Mercury was direct, conjuncted Chiron. Mercury retrograde conjunct Chiron. When Mercury is direct again, it's going to conjunct Chiron. The new moon solar eclipse was conjunct Chiron to the minute. Those of you who watch my channels can practically say these things along with me now. And so this theme of healing, this theme of coming back to yourself, this theme of connecting to your truest, unsullied, uncomplicated, clear, direct, straight from source self, unwounded, and Mercury retrograde delivering, helping us process mentally. And it's not just then providing healing, although it would be, and it would be returning you to do so, but in the process you're also thinking about, who am I when I am wounded? And how is that not effective? And how's that keeping me from being fulfilled and being successful? And added to that, I think, is the more positive side of feeling that connection to this healed side of ourselves. So even today, Monday, there may have been a sense of processing what I just said and realizing that there is kind of a bedrock of comfort as you process, and especially the processing is honest, and it's not just about the other person or the other people or the other situations, but also about who we are when we're wounded and tricky as a result, and hurting, and not completely embodied, and not completely self-confident, and not therefore effulgent and confident and happy. As we process causes, symptoms, behaviors, take responsibility for them, understand the connection between how us splashing around can create problems for us, where it is that we do need to stand up for ourselves, where certain things need not have become problems in the first place, blah, blah, blah. it could have been something, again, that's been operating for the past 4 or 5 days, but Mercury retrograde conjuncted Chiron for the second time. And with the retrograde Mercury, it has more of a processing internal component. Now, as I've said to you before a number of times, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, you might find that you are clearer about the target and ready to move towards it, and just much more decisive, and feeling much more in sync with the world, while Mercury is retrograde till April the 25th or so. And this Mercury retrograde conjunct Chiron may be less about processing and may in fact be delivering some of the clarity and the healing. For the rest of us, when Mercury actually goes direct and conjuncts Chiron in May for the third and final time, we might see, hopefully, the positive results, positive repercussions. We may have the opportunity to communicate in a healed way, but also experience kind of the final part of the final learnings, the final lessons of who we are and have been, and created certain consequences in our unhealed state in May, in the first couple of weeks of May. Okay. Now, Mercury conjuncted Chiron today. On the 17th, 2 days from now, Venus conjuncts the North Node. This, I think, is what, when I was thinking about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's this Venus conjuncting the North Node. Venus, the planet of blessings and opportunity, the North Node, pointing to the direction in which we need to move and lean into. And this is a gateway. This is that beam of light that Venus is providing. This is that thread that we can hold on to that is going to carry us through. So it makes me wonder, especially if there's a direction, etc., that you've been trying to move towards in the second half of last year, July, August of last year. Second half of last year, feeling thwarted, feeling like, and then since the middle of February, feeling like, yep, okay, now I can move forward, but still feeling unclear about how to do so. Venus conjunct the North Node might provide an opportunity. Remember, with the eclipses and Mercury retrograde, I've been talking about knocking on various doors and showing up to the opportunities and paying attention to which doors just kind of have a flow to them. I liken it to, you barely touch the handle and the door flings open and pulls you in. Now, you do have to show up and you do have to do your end of the bargain. You can't just show up disheveled and unprepared and not ready to avail of the opportunity. So if it's an interview, you've got to prepare. You've got to, but it's one of those things where we've all had experiences where we are really prepared, and if the door is not ours and it's not meant to let us in, it doesn't matter how prepared we are or not. But we still need to be prepared. And if it's meant for us, we show up prepared, and the door opens with almost astonishing ease. It's going to have a hard time opening with astonishing ease if we're not prepared. So but that said, the Sun conjuncted the North Node when? When, people? When? Do I have that date with me? On April the 4th. Mercury conjuncted the North Node at the very end, just before it went retrograde, at the very end of March. And I look at the North Node as the North Node, but a lot of people calculate the North Node as the true node. Not getting into that. But if you calculate the North Node as the true node, Mercury retrograde conjuncts the North Node 3 times. If you do the North Node like I do, then Mercury, as it was getting ready to enter its shadow degrees, conjuncted the North Node, now retrograde, conjuncted the North Node, direct conjuncted Chiron, retrograde on April the 1st, conjuncts Chiron again today, and then as it heads towards the 25th, when it's going to go direct, it does not quite conjunct the North Node, but it acknowledges it nods to it and starts to move forward. So whether or not you think Mercury retrograde is going to conjunct the North Node or not, we cannot deny the importance of the North Node as well as Chiron with this Mercury retrograde. Why is Mercury retrograde in Aries conjuncting Chiron, and then either conjuncting or blowing a kiss to the North Node as it goes direct? What do you need to heal? What wound do you need to examine as part of this Mercury retrograde so that once it goes direct, you can truly move forward? And what you are moving forward towards may very well and likely be being identified and created with this Venus North Node conjunction on the 17th. And that opportunity, that thread might already be here, because it's not going to be on Wednesday itself, on the 17th itself. Then, on the 19th, Mercury retrograde conjuncts Venus. So Mercury retrograde conjuncts Chiron, Venus conjuncts the North Node, and then Mercury and Venus conjunct. The planet of communication and cognition that is bringing us face to face with things that were in our blind spot prior to April the 1st, that is causing us to process, to clean up, to prepare. There are astrologers who would argue that the North Node solar eclipse on April the 8th was not only conjunct Chiron to the minute, but was also conjunct to Mercury retrograde. And they wouldn't be too far wrong. It's just that I am so particular about looking at conjunctions only within 5 degrees. That conjunction was, what, 6 degrees away? Barely 7 degrees away? Close enough. Close enough. So the planet of communication, the planet of processing, the planet of making us look at these wounds, the planet asking us to prepare, the planet asking us to go back to the drawing board, the planet that is asking us to, and when I was thinking about this particular video, and I have learned to not ignore these impulses, think also about, and I've already said this before, think also about the houses in your chart ruled by Mercury and what is going on with them as part of this Mercury retrograde. What is being rethought? What is being reconsidered? What needs to be addressed related to the Virgo and Gemini parts of your chart? But a retrograde Mercury, communication, processing, conjuncts Venus. An opportunity could come back from the past, from the recent past. As we were heading towards, remember, Mercury conjuncted the North Node when? When, folks, when? On March the 19th, Mercury conjuncted the North Node, because it was, March the 19th, Mercury conjuncted the North Node, and it entered its shadow degrees on March the 18th. April the 4th, the Sun conjuncted the North Node. April the 15th, April the 17th, Venus conjuncts the North Node, and as Mercury heads towards going direct next week. April the 23rd, according to some, or not according to others, but almost according to everybody, if not actually, Mercury conjuncts the North Node again. And when Mars comes in to Aries at the end of April, beginning of May for all intents and purposes, conjuncting the North Node is the first conjunction it's going to make. So retrograde Mercury meets up with Venus on April the 19th. April the 20th, Jupiter conjuncts Uranus in Taurus, the day after the Sun enters Taurus. And then on the 21st, next Sunday, at the end of this week, Venus conjuncts Chiron. And the Sun squares Pluto, bringing the attention to saying, you know what? We're still in Aries season, and we've still got the North Node eclipse in action and the Aries month in action, but I'm starting to pull some attention to the Taurus part of the chart, and the full moon is going to react to that on Tuesday, and we're going to talk about how all these planets coming into Taurus are going to require to be doing something to help Pluto in Aquarius meet its transformational aims that are just beginning. But this is going to be the year. We're going to look back to 2024, 19 odd years from now, and recognize and realize that whatever Pluto is trying to transform for us in the Aquarius part of the chart started unmistakably in 2024. Pluto did come into Aquarius briefly in 2023, but it's really this year that kind of counts. Starting the end of this year, beginning of next year, it's going to be in Aquarius for good. Venus conjuncts the North Node. Venus conjuncts Mercury retrograde. Things take on a more communication aspect. Opportunities may be being communicated about. You may be in preparation mode, as I said, as the week goes on. And then Venus conjuncts Chiron. Lovely. Peace, harmony, healing, progress towards that. The one thing with that conjunction may well be that you may, as this week progresses, and you may be already feeling this, there is a serious side to Venus conjuncting Chiron where you might be contemplating, and I've already covered this a little bit, as to how it is that your unhealed self might be sabotaging and could potentially sabotage opportunities. It's a productive processing, and there's always the risk that will, but there's something fundamentally as a result of this new moon solar eclipse that is being healed and sorted out in a relatively big way. All the way till June the 8th at least, but even over the next 6 months or so. So Venus conjuncting Chiron can bring a certain amount of harmony and healing, but it can also mean that you are very aware of the effects of our unhealed self and the impact it might have on relationships and financial opportunities and creative opportunities and protecting what is valuable and going after what is valuable and identifying what is valuable. With Venus, the word is opportunity. But nothing to fear, I mean, as we get into next week, the energy becomes more urgent, gnarlier, more confusing, but also things that came up around April the 1st start to experience a certain amount of finality and closure as Mercury becomes stationary and gets ready to start going direct again. And we coming out of that by the end of next week. I'm now talking about the week that starts on the 21st of April as we head towards the beginning of May. Really are going to be clearer about how we're moving. This week and next week are important preparatory weeks. So by all means, I've kind of warned you that the energy gets jangly this week. Pay attention to, if you can identify what that portal is, what that opportunity is, what that thread is that is going to help you facilitate. You know how you get across a river and it's a short stream, but it's steady water, and sometimes people have boats or rafts, but on the other side there's this rope and you can use that to kind of pull you through. What that rope is, it may well be linked to where it is that you wanted to get to in the second half of last year but couldn't. And now if you're looking for that opening and that through line, Venus, you may have started to feel it at the end of last week, but this week you may really feel like Venus is throwing you that line and you need to catch it, and that is what is going to help you accelerate, move things forward. We're still in preparation mode, and so by all means get into action. Even if the energies get jangly as you head to the full moon, determine how you're going to manage that. It may be that you're able to get very important things taken care of. It may be that you start to feel a certain amount of urgency, because even if you felt Venus's benefit and the identification and the rope throw by Thursday, Friday of last week, as Venus has been approaching and Mercury retrograde was approaching Chiron and Venus was going to conjunct the North Node, it may be that there are more developments and even more perhaps opportunities or healing or harmony this week. It is Venus's week. As we head towards the end of the week, we're going to feel that Pluto square with the sun. And that is also not much more other than an awareness. And the awareness comes on the heels of the Sun-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. Excuse me, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. The conjunction happens, and then the sun walks in and says, all right, since May of last year, Jupiter has been in this part of the chart and is going to be hanging around till May the 25th in the Taurus part of the chart. But now I, the sun, am here, and I'm going to illuminate the Taurus part of the chart so we can start to do our internal annual review of what this particular house in our chart looks like, what's going on, what opportunities have been created, what seismic shift, referring to the video I did yesterday on the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, has occurred. And what needs to be focused on in the Taurus part of the chart that will allow Pluto to create its transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart. So that will start to, while it isn't as active as the full moon squaring Pluto, but then Venus squaring Pluto and Mercury squaring Pluto and Mars squaring Pluto eventually. Not quite as active as that. With the sun, the energy still tends to be a little bit more yin, internal, illuminated. We'll start to feel that, but it is still Venus's week. She conjuncts the North Node on Wednesday. She meets up with Mercury, I think, on Friday. And then she meets up with Chiron on Sunday. And it's lovely because you've got Venus doing that while the Jupiter. Remember, I've been saying to you all along that whatever is going on, whatever stability needs to be reached in the Pisces part of the chart, and whatever expansiveness is going on in the Aries part of the chart may well be trying to serve the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in the Taurus part of our chart. So considering that Venus considered a benefic, Jupiter considered a benefic, are operating heavily this coming week, we may be very attuned to, as I've said to you in that optimism video that I did, finally we have turned a corner after both the eclipses have been completed. And we may all of a sudden feel like, I think I know what I'm committing to. I don't know what the timeline is yet. I don't know how quickly it will happen. I don't know. But I do understand, all of us should understand, that the Aries eclipses continue till the middle of 2025. And we still have on October 2nd an eclipse of release. December 2nd playing an important role in that. And then March 29th, the next and final Aries eclipse in this cycle. Looking towards May the 29th of next year. If you felt the optimism and the thread and the clarity that you've been waiting for, and we've still got 2 weeks of Mercury retrograde left to go. So patience, cleaning up, processing. Not a time to sign contracts necessarily unless you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, in which case you can just check all the details. Not a time to inaugurate something new. A time to allow, even if you have gotten a glimmer of a portal coming into this week or it occurs this week, allow the fact that whatever's on the other end of the portal is still somehow being discussed or figured out or thought through or looked at. Might change once Mercury goes direct at the end of April. And we would kind of want it to change so that things become a little bit more final and finally defined by the time we get to that point. Whatever this portal is, you may not, it may not start to feel conclusive in terms of its final design, and we don't really want it to until the end of April, until Mercury starts to move direct. And beginning of May, and even after that May new moon. All right, folks. That's what I wanted to say. I've heard some of you loud and clear about the number of ads since I started the monetization on this channel, so it is something I will look at. Just be patient. Give me 2 or 3 weeks until I figure out what the hell's going on, what I'm doing with all of that, and exactly how YouTube works there. So your patience is appreciated. As I said in the optimism video, it's nice to be at this point now after the eclipses. It's not like the challenges have gone away. And the following week, the week of April the 21st, we have a full moon, we have Mercury stationary going direct, and we have Mars conjuncting Neptune. That's going to be a hell of a week. But we need the awareness and the clarity and the action that the Mars-Neptune conjunction is going to involve that week to kind of put the finishing touches with regard to how it is that we're going to move forward after that. All right, if you found this video useful, feel free to share, like, comment on it. If you're interested in exploring getting a personal reading of your chart with me, my email address is in the description box below. You can email me there for information and rates. As I said, feel free to like, comment the video, and feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button, and then if you hover over that bell, there's a wiggly bell on top. Click on the wiggly bell, and you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. Thank you for, hey, a video under an hour. Finally, and I will be in touch soon. I'm going to try and slow down some of the content. I know I've published in the last week quite a bit, so I'm really gonna, I'm not feeling terrible about it, but you know, there's a lot then to catch up on, and I'm sure everyone's got other things that they're watching and things that need to get done and all that kind of stuff. I think as of right now, the next video I really need to do is that full moon in Scorpio video. So it may be 2 or 3 days, allowing you to catch up on things before I get to that video. So enjoy and process this one and take a look at that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction one I did yesterday. They should be helpful and contemplative for the next few days.